We are thrilled to welcome in film analysis expert from The Athletic, Ted. How you doing today, Ted?
Doing well. How are you guys?
What's
and
up,
by the
buddy?
way, every once in a while, somebody mistakens me for Ted Nguyen on Twitter, and they're like, "Why is Ted Nguyen giving out football takes?"
That's hand up my bed, Ted.
Not only
Ted, what you should do is start playing the guitar and singing
Yeah,
heavy
that's
acid
I
rock.
should.
not only did Mike
Yeah.
screw up your name originally, but then when he brought you in, he purposely didn't say your last
Yeah,
name.
he just left it at
because
Ted.
he
I did
knew
get
he
a
would
little
screw it up
scared.
again.
Let's have a TED talk.
I got a little scared. That's on me.
I mean, Ted, when you watched the film on Shedeur Sanders, and you know, obviously it's been what 4.5 games at this point. What's it telling you? What are you seeing right now? What do you like? What do you not like?
Yeah, I think even though last game the stats look really bad, obviously, I think Dennis Allen does a phenomenal job of disguising coverage, even though the Bears kind of struggle with their defensive personnel. But I think he's mostly seeing the field well because he's attacking parts of the coverage that he should be, and that came through in those two big throws to Isaiah Bond, where he's able to see the coverage rotation and attack deep, where I think a lot of quarterbacks might have missed seeing that space. But right now, I think he's really struggling with dealing with pressure as far as reading blitzes and knowing how to react. And that's not all on him. There's times where he's seeing the blitzes and he wants to throw hot to a certain receiver, but they might not be on the same page. So I think overall, as an offense, they have to have a better pressure plan and they have to be on the same page, because that's where it seems like defensive coordinators are going to try to attack them by just being tricky with their blitzes and sending pressure from unobvious places.
So it sounds like on Shedeur early returns, the good parts of his game are pretty strong and the bad parts of his game are pretty weak. I mean, it seems pretty extreme. Is that fair?
I would say that's fair. I think he has a much stronger arm than I gave him credit for. I think he's made some throws in his time playing that that takes a lot of arm strength that I was impressed with. That he had to throw off his back foot while getting hit. And I think as far as taking those big sacks, it has happened, but he also is being very intentional with stepping up in the pocket. And I thought late in that game, he did a good job of stepping up, even though he was getting hit a lot. So I think he is working on these weaknesses. So it is a positive sign.
You know, Ted, one of the things I look at, and one of the things that we'll talk about as the season goes on, obviously quarterback is a big topic here. But there's two other positions that when I watch the film is very glaring. It's the offensive line and it's the receiving core. In terms of what you've seen on film from the offensive line and the receiving core, if you were going to try to attack that in this year's draft, or you were going to try to remedy that, what would be your main priority if you had to choose between one of those, the offensive line group up front or the receiving core to add weapons?
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's always going to be the offensive line. I think you always have to prioritize getting the 5 guys that you want to move forward and just getting them playing time together. And I think especially for a quarterback like Shedeur Sanders, who can be a little sensitive to pressure, you have to get that offensive line fixed. You have to be able to run the ball, take some of the pressure off of him, and you have to be able to stop the interior pressure where it's going to tempt him to try to run backwards and those sorts of things. So I really think they need to fix the guard positions first of all, and then with the wide receiver positions, they do have some talent to work with. I think Isaiah Bond, like I mentioned. There's some talent there. Jerry Jeudy, we know he could make big plays, but we also know he has kind of a Jekyll and Hyde thing. I think you can work with this receiving group, especially with Harold Fannin. But obviously you want to upgrade. But to me, the priority has to be that line first.
Ted, I'm sure you saw Kirk Cousins talking whatever day it was about progression reads versus coverage reads, and I'm wondering your impression of how the league has sort of evolved with that, and then the second part of that, on top of that, where is Shedeur at that from what you've seen on film in terms of being able to go through his progressions?
Yeah, so I think the big topic right now is progression reads, which are just pure progression. We're going to go from 1 to 2 to 3 to 4 to 5, and it doesn't really change that much with what kind of coverage you see, because defenses are so good at disguising and they hold their disguises all the way up to the last second. And Shedeur saw some of that against Dennis Allen. Dennis Allen is a very tricky defensive coordinator that does a lot of disguising, and a couple times he got caught in pure progressions where he was a little slow because of the pure progressions instead of a veteran who might see certain things and cut out 1 to 2 and go straight to 3 to 4. And that happened in that game where he got to 3 or 4 a little late, and it's not really his fault because he doesn't have that experience to be able to cut down on some of that pure progression. So I think to start off a quarterback, I think they have to be in the pure progression game early on, just because you cannot expect them to be able to read these coverages as complicated as they are now. And as they get smarter, as they get more experience, you can do a little bit more specific type of coverage reads. They could cut down on some of their pure progression reads. So it just takes time and it takes experience. And that's one of the things that it's hard for quarterbacks to get now, because as soon as the quarterback really struggles, teams are ready to move on from them, and they don't get that experience and that opportunity to really bank in those reps that they need to be able to move on from pure progressions and get into more coverage reads and mix up how they see defenses.
How does play action play into that when a quarterback has to take his eyes off the scheme and almost turn his back to the defense and then sort of readjust to what he's seeing? You know what I mean? How much does that complicate for particularly a young quarterback, a rookie quarterback, who maybe already is having a hard time deciphering what all the defense is doing? Now you're taking your eyes off it for just that split second or 2 seconds.
Yes, so with most play actions, it's pure progression, because with play action, it's like, I'm going to check my deep receiver, or it's going to be this big crosser to my check down. But like you mentioned, when you turn your back to a defense, that coverage picture changes. But when you're trying to throw that ball on time, let's say I'm trying to throw a dig route off of play action on time, I think it's going to be open because it looks like the defense is going to be the cover 3 and that void's going to be there. But as I turn around, what if they change to a Tampa 2 and all of a sudden there's a hole player and I'm already in the middle of my throwing process because I think that hole is going to be there and it's not there, and I have to quickly register that and then go to my check down. So it's all about just seeing it extremely quickly and then moving on to my next read, which is not easy for a young quarterback to do.
Yeah.
We had a conversation earlier in the show, Ted, about the jobs that are coming open in the NFL or that could possibly come open. Some of them we don't even think will be available, but it's all based on a Bill Barnwell piece where he ranked these 8 jobs in terms of which one would be most attractive to which one would be least attractive. And at least attractive. I don't know, Mike, if we could call that graphic up again. Cincinnati was the top of that list. We don't know that there's going to be a change there. Will Taylor come back? Who knows? But we all agree that that's a pretty damn attractive job because you've got Jamar Chase and you've got Joe Burrow in an elite wide receiver quarterback tandem. But outside of that, we really couldn't come with any great consensus as to which of the jobs would be second most attractive and third and on and on. There was some general consensus that the Browns, who you see here at 3, would actually be in the bottom 5, 6, 7, 8 of that 2-page graphic. What's your take on this list, and how would you rank them?
I think the Giants should be high up there because you're getting a chance to work with Jackson Dart, who I think has looked really good this season. Obviously, he needs to learn how to protect himself, but he's way more advanced as a passer than even I thought, and I really liked him coming into the draft. And he was able to produce against some good teams. The only hang up with him is obviously the injury part of it, but there's some young talent with the Giants, so I would put them high up on the list as well. I think Cam Ward has played way better than his stats show. He's playing with start receivers that might not start anywhere else in the league, and he's already gone through a second offensive coordinator change. So I think that is a intriguing spot. And I think the Raiders could be an intriguing spot as well because they look like they're in line to get the number 1 pick. So when you're a young offensive coach and you get to handpick your quarterback and really work with them from the basement floor, I think that could be an intriguing opportunity as well.
Interesting. So like us, he would have the Browns on that second page.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, that's a good list. When you said the Raiders, Bull and I kind of looked at each other like, wow, that's interesting. But you do make a great point. If you're certainly quarterback deprived, and if you go and if you think Mendoza's the guy, and you get to draft him and work with him, you're not winning in this league without a quarterback. So you could check that box if he ends up being the right guy. Hey Ted, great stuff. Does anybody else have anything else?
No,
before
we're good.
We go?
Thanks, Ted. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Buddy.
Happy holidays to you. We appreciate you coming on. Thank you very much.
Thanks for having me on.